All right, so we've talked about Cournot duopoly, one version of oligopoly kind of model. We talked about how Cournot duopoly compares to monopoly and perfect competition. It kind of comes out in the middle. Price is not quite as high as monopoly, and output not quite as restricted. One question that might occur to you as we go through this is, um, what does it mean for firms to compete on the basis of output rather than using prices? I mean, typically when we think of competition, it's more like the, the gas stations on opposing corners. They don't post signs saying how many gallons of gas they pump. They post signs saying what the price is per gallon. They're competing on the basis of price, not quantity. So does it really make sense for firms to think about quantity in this way? And the answer is that in some cases it does make some sense. And those cases would be ones where firms have difficulty changing quantity. In that case, quantity is an important decision. Think about in a intersection of two interstate highways, where very often you'll see lots of places to eat and lots of hotels and motels. Suppose you're considering building a hotel in a location like that. One thing you'd want to know before you build, before you decide exactly what to build, is how many other hotel rooms are already existing in that area. If there's lots and lots of hotel rooms, it tells you that the residual demand left for you is going to be quite small, and you're probably not going to want to commit to a large expenditure. On the other hand, if you see a location like this and you believe that it has the capacity for a lot of hotel rooms and there aren't very many in existence, you would say that the demand that is open for you is quite sizable. And so these are situations not unlike what's described in Cournot duopoly, where firms have to make decisions on how to compete with anyone who's around based on the quantity that they produce. All right, so that's our first model of oligopoly, and there are a number of different models because oligopolies are not uniform. They come in a lot of different versions, and people have, over the years, spent a lot of time trying to understand exactly how oligopolies work. So Cournot comes up with one model, and I want to go to a second model. And the second model of oligopoly that we'll look at is called Stackelberg duopoly. And it's named after Stackelberg, who was an economist. So under Stackelberg, and again, we'll characterize this as a duopoly because it's manageable if we only have two firms to take care of. But we believe we could expand this to multiple firms. So the firms in this duopoly sell identical products. And the firms compete using quantity. And the firms decide sequentially how much to produce. Okay, so in the jargon of game theory, which we're going to go to some efforts to keep on introducing here, this is a sequential quantity setting game. So Cournot is a simultaneous quantity setting game. This is sequential. The firms don't move at the same time. One goes first, the other goes second. So there's a follower and a leader. Let's talk about the follower first. The follower simply takes the leader's output as given and responds to it the best way they can. They take the leader's output as given and then try to maximize profit given that the leader is doing that. So that means that the follower simply acts as a Cournot duopolist, because that's exactly the behavior we described for Cournot. The leader isn't really concerned about the follower, but takes the follower's response into account. So the leader acts like a profit maximizer while taking into account the follower's likely response. Okay. In this game, the leader benefits from having a first mover advantage. Oops. This whole writing thing is complicated. There we go. So a first mover advantage is a common concept, again, in game theory. If you get to go first, you can kind of set the terms of the game. When we think about sort of literal games, in tennis, you're assumed to have an advantage if you serve, because you get to dictate the outset of the game, how the game will go. And it's similar for the leader of the game. All right, so how's this going to work? Let's suppose that the market demand is price is 50 minus 2Q. And suppose marginal cost is 5. This is the same market we described when we did the Cournot model. And so since it's the same model, we can restate the demand curve this way: 50 minus 2QL minus 2QF for leader and follower. And for the follower, the quantity is going to be the Cournot quantity, which means it's just going to be the reaction function that the Cournot firm would have. So this firm has a reaction function, which is 45 minus 2QL over 4. That's the same as the reaction function we saw for both firms in Cournot. Okay, that's the follower. What about the leader? Well, the leader now faces this demand curve. 50 minus 2QL minus the followers, oops, sorry, that should be 2QL minus 2QF. The QF is this. And so we can make that 45 minus 2QL over 4. Now we have just one quantity, the leader's quantity here. So let's see, we can we want to reduce the demand curve for the leader. So it's going to be 2QL minus, so 45 over 4 times 2 is 22.5 plus 1/2 times 2 is QL. So the demand is going to be 27.5. That's 50 minus 22.5 minus QL is the price. Okay. Marginal revenue then is 27.5 minus 2QL. And now this firm can set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. So 5 is equal to 27.5 minus 2QL, and we can solve for QL. And so we get 2QL equals 22.5. QL then is 22.5 divided by 2, 11.25. So the leader produces 11.25 units. The follower will produce 45 minus 2 times 11.25 over 4. So that's going to be 45 minus 22.5 is 22.5, and 22.5 divided by 4 is 22.5 divided by 4 is 5.625. And so, as typically happens in Stackelberg, the leader will produce more than the follower. What will the price be? Well, the price will be 50 minus 2 times 11.25 plus 5.625. So that's 50 minus, let's see, plus 11.25 times 2. So that's 33.75. That makes the price $16.25. How much profit does each firm earn? The profit for the leader is total revenue, which is $16.25 times 11.25 units minus total cost, 11.25 times 5. So that comes out to be 11.25 times 11.25. Which is $126.56. The profit for the follower is the price is $16.25 times a quantity of 5.625 minus 5.625 times 5. And so that's going to be 11.25 times 5.625, which is $63.28. So the follower ends up producing half as much as the leader and ends up with half as much profit as the leader. And that's Stackelberg duopoly.